Then next thing you know, it's the 6th day of Christmas. It's going by quite fast. This is the one you remember from the stories when you were a child. This is when the 3 wise guys arrived somewhere, bringing presents. They brought coal, Frankenstein, and some kind of fur. Don't know why. Anyhow, that's what happens on the 6th day of Christmas. Now, the 6th day of Christmas has historically been for nerds, I think. I may have made that up. By the way, Arlen sends his apologies. This is not going very well this week for him. No, he's getting fitted for a prosthetic something today. He wouldn't say what it was. He said it was a bit personal and embarrassing, but he'll be here tomorrow for the 7th day of Christmas. So anyway, he sends his apologies. So you must have a nerd on your list. I mean, if you're in the true spirit of Christmas, you're at the top of your own list anyway, and you are a nerd because you're watching me. So this is really for the nerds. So you know what a nerd likes more than anything else? Another nerd. Nerds do well together. They have things to talk about. Well, I've got a nerd that I talk to, and he's a super nerd because he's also won an Oscar. Now, I haven't won that many Oscars. I've won none Oscars so far. Working on it though, working on it. But my friend Mike, he's won an Oscar. Should have won 2, actually, truth be known. And he bought me a Christmas present that he sent to me. In fact, he bought me 2. And that is going to be my recommendation, because if you have a nerd on your list and it's a photography nerd, they will absolutely just decompensate if they get this for Christmas. Let me tell you what it is, because it's right here in front of us. I'm going to turn on the other camera with this magic button. Nothing happened. That's all right. So this is it. This is the incredible gift that my friend Mike gave me, and I'm going to recommend you go buy for all your nerdy friends. This is a PB-6 Bellows, which, as you know, is the best bellows in the universe, made by Nikon. And we've talked about this thing ad nauseum, as you know. What we haven't talked about is this piece forward. This piece forward is a slide duplicating set. It's called the PS-6. As opposed to PB-6, which would be the bellows. And the purpose of having this is so that you can take your slides that you have from when you were a young person, 60, 70, 100 years ago, and you can digitize them into digital films, photographs, so that you can lose them on the computer, or you can send them to your grandchildren who won't open them. That type of thing, modern things that you'd like to do that you can't do with slides. You put your slides in here, and then you put a Godox MF12 because it's the best. I almost dropped that. That would have just been too much for me today. Then you take a Godox 12 and you put some diffusion on it. Actually, this comes with a little window of glass that you can put in here that will effectively diffuse the light. But you fire your flash into the thing, the camera, and you take a picture of the slide, and that makes it a digital picture. Isn't that something? And they were doing this back in prehistoric times before they had digital cameras. And this is one of the original ones. It's a thing of absolute engineering beauty. Now, I don't want to wax poetic on it, but, well, I think I will. I'm using it with a reversed 50mm lens because I don't have a short macro lens, but this is what those 55 and 60mm macro lenses are best for, going in this space, or actually you can even put them on this standard reversed. But the way this thing works is I'm using a reversed 50mm prime lens because this is another great macro lens. This is the really dead simple 50mm f1.8 D. Yeah, the D lens. It's got a manual aperture ring, clicky one like that, which is fantastic, and a focus ring. You mount it backwards directly onto the bellows. If you can find the dot, like, this is difficult for me. There you go. Till it clicks in place. Because the end of the reversed lens has kind of got an exposed bit at the back, what we probably need to do, and what we need to do to make it mount onto this, is use one of these fantastic BR3s that we use all the time for other things. This is probably what it was made for. It goes right onto the, and that was a BR2 on the front. So this is why you buy these as a set sometimes, a BR2 and a BR3. Hang on, let me see where the dot is. It's the only thing Nikon makes that has a black dot instead of a red dot, which is really confusing for me because I'm colorblind. I'm not colorblind. There we go. Oh dear. I feel a breakage coming on. That would be bad. So let me screw that back in. All right. So when that's mounted like that, this just has a nice smooth end. It's actually got a thread on the inside, but we don't need the thread. We just take this miniature bellows like this, fit it right over the end of any 52mm lens or step-up ring or whatever you have, and then tighten this little thumb screw and it locks it in place so that light can't leak in and you have a perfectly closed system. Now, I'm going to talk about the slide that's in here for just a minute, but first, that's all you have to do. You then set your magnification based on how far you extend your bellows. More magnification as you move the lens away, and of course you would also move your slide away. And you can do this to get the perfect frame where you have your 35mm film absolutely filling your frame, and then you just start taking pictures. And that's really all there is to it. You can do it with continuous light, you can do it with flash. But this is a thing of great beauty because it's all about accuracy when you're doing this, when you're replicating slides. You want to make absolutely sure that your slide is perfectly straight, perfectly square, and right in the middle of the frame. That's so important. Otherwise, you have a wonky off-center photograph. Nobody wants to look at that. But this is where this thing really shines. There's a button at the front that you can loosen, and it allows you to move this slide holder a little bit to the left, a little bit to the right, a little bit up, a little bit down, until you get it right perfect where you want it, and then you just lock it in place. And it's so beautiful. It's like one of those Hugo cars. You remember them, how beautiful they were? It's like that, only much, much nicer. Get one of these for your friend. Now, they also come with a pair of trays for holding film on, which is a fancy gadget. This one didn't come with that, but I know they can come with that. And yeah, so you need to get one for anybody you know that has a camera, has taken pictures with slides before, likes to do non-digital photography these days. It's just everybody, just buy all of them. Buy all of them you can find and give them to people. They'll like them, they really will. Even if they don't know what they're for, they'll like them. Don't get the one for the PB-5 bellows or the PB-4 bellows even, because they don't have this prismatic rail. This prismatic rail is what's magic about the PB-6. It makes sure that this is always square and perpendicular to the camera. And that is so important because what you have to have the sensor in the camera, the plane of the sensor, identical to that of the film up here. So to do that, you need this rail that has an angle to it, so it doesn't allow any swivel, rotational swivel that would knock the film out of alignment. You still sometimes have to focus stack these just in case there is the tiniest bit of off-centerness. You want everything sharp. So I've talked enough about the process of doing this. Just get one. Just get one. Now, I said I'd say something about the slide in here because this is special. There's probably a way you can get that out without hurting it. I'm going to endeavor to do that. It's made for people with relatively small fingers, like 1 millimeter wide. There we go. Comes right out. Very nice. This is a test slide. And this is the other present that you're going to buy. This is the present you're going to buy for any really seriously nerdy nerds out there who love photography and are doing one of two things. They're either making pictures, digital pictures out of their slides, or they just like to test their lenses. They like to measure the accuracy of their lenses. They like to pretend they know what they're talking about. This is perfect for people like that, people like me. This is a unique product. If you are into photography and you do this kind of stuff, or if you've ever tried to test your lenses and you're trying to figure out whether or not they're flat, if they have a flat field or is there some field curvature, if you need to know that kind of thing, you probably struggle with those pieces of cardboard you photograph and then try and tell whether or not things are straight and flat. What you need to be doing is using a target. Now, you can buy targets that are etched on glass, and that is a great way to do it if you're extremely rich and you can afford to spend many hundreds of dollars on etched glass targets, like the Air Force target from 1951, which is what they used to use to do maps and everything out of airplanes. It was a target to tell how good their cameras were. And it's kind of one of the standards. It allows you to measure the resolution of the sensor or the resolution of the lens by having you count the number of pairs of lines that you can see on this target. They're tiny, 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 because we're using this as a macro lens, and you read them till you can't read them anymore, and that's how much resolution your lens has. So they're fairly straightforward to use. And they're also used to tell that your system is completely aligned. Because when you look at this, you'll see what's in focus and what's not. And you need to have the corners sharp, everything flat, everything square before you start making your slides. And this is something you do every time you use it. Now, these are different than the glass ones in several very important respects, but probably the most important is this is actually a photograph. This is a photograph of a very large, very accurate, very meticulously created test chart that's several meters across. So it's big. And this is a photograph, but it's not just a regular photograph. It's taken with a very, very high resolution lens on a very high resolution sensor using film of a very special type. It's so special, I had to write it down because I've never heard of it. So I'm now going to look to the left to remember the name. But these aren't made with just any film. They're made with probably the best film in terms of the least amount of grain of any film that's made today. It's called Adox. And the person who makes these is a Russian gentleman who lives in Brooklyn. That's in New York, not Russia. And his name's, and I'm not making this up, Vlad, as in Vlad the Impaler. But I'm led to believe he doesn't do impaling. He just does the photography. The guy is a bit of a genius when it comes to knowing stuff about photography. And there's a great website. So even if you don't buy one of these, which you should, because they're affordable and you should have one, everybody should have one, somewhere in the $20 to $30 range for the full set. And you get 3 of these slides. So when you wear them out by looking at them too much, you can replace it with another one. So you get 3 of the slides or 4 of the slides for a little bit more money. This, by the way, I have no idea how much it costs because it would be rude for me to look it up because my friend gave this to me as a Christmas present. But I'm guessing it's probably about $10,000 just looking at it. And might be less than that, might be less. If I can get Arlen to put the price in the show notes, that it'll be in there. Otherwise, you'll just have to call them up and ask. But these $20, $30, and you get one of these kits with 3 photographs or 4 photographs in it. And it's amazing. Well, I'll show you the pictures of it. Well, you've already seen them. I've already shown you, haven't I? But this is something that you need to have, you need to use. You will be really glad you did. Now, some of you are probably real cheapskates, and the thought of spending $20,000 or $30,000 on this is out of the question. You're not even going to spend $20 on this. So you need something cheap to get somebody. All right. Presumably, all your friends like to clean insects. Yeah, I figured as much. So you need to get some of these. These are Zenpor filter papers. And I'm recommending them because they're the ones I use. And by the way, did I mention this? This is all Christmas spirit. I'm not getting paid to do any of this, any of these things that I'm doing, of telling you about stuff. I'm just doing it because I think that you would like it, the things. Anyway, filter papers. The reason I recommend these filter papers is if you're cleaning insects, have you ever noticed how if you use like a kitchen towel or a napkin or something like that to soak up the water off the insect, it does a great job. In fact, it does too good a job. It sucks all the liquid right off them, lickety split. Next thing you know, they're dried out. The other thing that they do is they leave behind hairs or fibers, which show up in macro photography. These are what they call slow filters, meaning they absorb the water much more slowly than regular filters. So I cut these into long strips with points on the end, and I hold them with the tweezers, and I use these to dry individual parts of an insect. I can also use the little pointy bits to comb hairs on bees and wasps and things like that. Trying to do that with something that absorbs the water fast, like blotting paper, you can't do it. You need something that gives you time. That's what this does. It buys you time. I love these things. They're my favorite filter papers. Get you some Zenpor filter papers. I'll put a link in the show notes along with a link for the slide thingamajigger and the target, Vlad's target, Vlad the Impaler's target. That's it for day 6. It went by fast, didn't it? Tomorrow's day 7. That's the penultimate. It's the second to last day of the 9 days of Christmas. And I checked it with Arlen, and it is 9 days, he says. So I was wrong to suggest it was 12 days. I'll see you on day 7. Have a good one.